got Jason here with Festool, and so we're a distributor of his product here locally in South Austin. So I'll give it up to Jason.
My name's Jason Lipness. I cover Central Texas, well, and technically New Mexico for Festool. I'm the regional sales manager for Festool. I live out of Llano, so I'm not quite as close. I'm a little bit farther west, but I cover this whole area. And really, you did a great job kind of segue into it. Really, it's about the Festool system. We talk about that all the time. You know, why does someone want to use Festool? Safety is the number one key: precision, accuracy, cleanliness, and really, you know, I think the biggest takeaway here is why you want to use and what questions I can answer for you. You know, we'll run through a couple of the tools and kind of the system itself, but you know, really want to make sure that everybody's comfortable understanding why Festool is there and what the difference is from every sander or saw or any other tool that you've used in the past. Because although there's similarities, obviously we work really hard to try to create an environment that's the safest, cleanest environment that you can get with working. So looking forward to any questions I can answer. Y'all probably have much more expertise than I do. So looking forward to learn a little bit from you also.
Okay, why don't you, Jason, if you don't mind, we'll go through this
You betcha.
and how this functions.
Can you give a little background in the company, you know, when they started?
Yeah, absolutely. So next year's a big year for us. It'll be 100 years. So 1925, all German-made tools continued through today. All of our tools are manufactured in Germany. We have one US-based distribution. It's where our Festool USA corporate office is. It's where our repair facility is. It's where our all of our operation, shipping, everything comes from. The great thing about Festool is when you purchase a Festool, you get not just the warranty, but the support behind it. That's really what we're known for. You know, we have a circular saw back in our corporate office that probably weighs more than I do. It's sitting up on a shelf, and the reason it's on a shelf, probably because no one can get it down. We were one of the first creators of that. Obviously, we made the first track saw. We were the first ones to come out with a track saw. And really, we were one of the first ones to come out with a system designed to be as dust-free as possible. On a horizontal surface, if the sander is fully on the surface and not off the surface, to block 99.7% of all particulates, which is basically a surgical mask, is what that is. A brief, really what makes us different isn't necessarily this, it's the dust extraction. I won't take it apart right now because we have the separator and things like that on it, but all of our dust extractors are completely sealed units. So in other words, like you've all seen shop vacs or other vacuums, as soon as you cycle them on, there's a little puff of dust, and you know that goes out in the air. When you're using it, sometimes you'll see that puff of dust. You'll never see this because these are all chamber tested vacuums. There's 100% sealed, there are 100% sealed units. So I can unlatch this unit, turn the vacuum on, lift it up, and it'll stay completely sealed, and I can't shake it off. So that's what starts our whole system. It's the adjustability of the dust extractors. You guys probably know this. You know, in our world, more is better, right? In sanding, especially sanding, more is not necessarily better. So a lot of people have dust extraction systems, but it's either on or off. It's all the way or nothing at all. Being able to adjust the suction is huge, especially when you get up into the higher grits. You know, every time you're sanding, there's a little bit of abrasive left on the surface. If you don't adjust the suction to that, it could either suck too much and suck the sander down and give you swirl marks, or couldn't suck enough and leave that dust and residual particulates on the surface, and you'll sit there forever and forever. Really important when you're doing a lot of clear coats and again higher grit stuff. So it all starts there. Our sanders, brushless motor, especially these EPS ECs, We have them in a couple sizes, 5-inch and 6-inch. Everything's millimeter because, again, we are a German company. Don't ask me to totally do everything in millimeter because I'm not great with it. The greatest thing about these sanders is they're one-handed sanders, adjustable speed, the automatic brake system, which is great when you cycle the sander on and then you turn it off. Obviously, you see the pad stop immediately. We produce 2 types of sanders in general. A whole family of what we call fine finish sanders, from a directional sander to a rectangular sander, cordless sanders, all based off this platform. Brushless motor, low vibration, varied grits, automatic brake, very easy to use all day, every day. It's a go-to sander. And then we have a line of what we call Rotex sanders or dual mode sanders. The greatest thing about these is if you're looking to do a whole bunch of removal, this is your guy. I always tell people all the time, this reminds me of, when I went to boot camp and I had experienced a floor buffer for the first time. That's what the Rotex mode is. If you're looking to remove something dramatically, that's that Rotex or gear-driven mode. Great for low grits, if you're really trying to get stuff off. Polishing, it kind of reverses. So if you're in a polishing mode, we make a polishing compound and polishing pads for this Rotex that you can actually polish a burl of wood to a point where you can get a mirror finish with 10,000, 12,000 grit liquid abrasive. So it's a sander that definitely can do everything in between. And then if you want fine finish just like this one, you turn that mode, there we go, and it's a random orbital sander. So it's a dual mode sander. The downfall of this, it's big, it's heavy, it's a 2-handed sander, it'll move on you. Not something that you probably would use every single day of your life because it's just big. We make them in 3 sizes, a 150, a 125, and a 90, or a 3-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch. That's the baseline of our sander. Again, the benefits that you get from ours is, how many people have you all used this? Pretty much. What's your thought process? Clean, light. What about a difference from the other sanders that you've used?
50% faster, and you don't have to go near as far down the grid to get the same finish.
I'm so glad you got it. It's like I set you up for that. That's perfect. We always hear about time. In our world, we talk, hey, we can save you time, which saves you money. Maybe not so relevant here, but we all value time. And, what I think it really, you brought the great point up, is there's a cardinal rule of grits, and you used to have to roll through grits, 80 to 100, 100 to 120, 120 to 150 to get that nice finished surface. You can do it in half the time because you're not cycling through grits like that. You can go 80 to 120, 120 to 180. 180 to 240 and get that job done faster, quicker, and honestly better. So, the weight of it, I think, is the most important thing. When my wife, she likes to get out of projects. She's very crafty at doing that, and so she's a physical therapist. She has a plate in her arm for when she had to catch a patient, and unfortunately, she's about 5'1" and not really good at catching a whole bunch of weight. She can't use anything that vibrates at all. So she can't get on the tractor, that's her excuse, can't get on the tractor to mow, right? Because the tractor vibrates too much and it hurts her wrist. Well, went to work for Festool, and lo and behold, she can use the sander because of the lack of vibration. So, honestly, on our joints and everything like that, that's another benefit to it. So, y'all have ran it. I guess, what questions would you have on why you wouldn't use it?
That's great.
Any downfalls?
The dust extraction, I have had comments from our members that the hose, keeping it flat on your piece, we're working through those options in our particular instance here, but that is the one thing, some people, if they use it backwards, it's easier to.
to do it,
To
so,
do it,
so the hose isn't in the way,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
You know,
So, I mean, but there's little tricks of the trade in any tool use.
anytime you can elevate the hose, you know, we talked about the boom arm, maybe not applicable here. Anytime you can get that hose above you, it's obviously easy. You'll see a lot of people when they're sanding run it over the top of their shoulder, you know, so that that's not sitting on the surface as you're trying to
And
move
pulling
the
it
sander.
down.
And pulling the sander down, because we do a lot of things with, like sanding plexiglass. How I sand, how you sand, how everybody else sands is different, you know. Where you get that best, you know, sanding surface is obviously as flat as it can be, you know, on the surface. Not tilted one way, not tilted forward, not tilted to the side. And you'll see that time and time again as people sand, you know, they're sanding, I guess, sanding techniques, so to say. Everybody has a different one, whether they go clockwise, counterclockwise, up, down, cross. There are ways that you can be sanding. The most important part, because that hose is on the back and it wants to pull it over, is to obviously get that hose elevated and then use the sander. Unless you can mount something, I've seen it in shops and things like that. Some people have got creative with bungee cords and things, but to get that hose up and out of the way.
And that is gonna happen, folks, here. We're gonna take that load of that hose off for this. We're just in the beginning process of that. So. But any comments or any other questions of the sanders would be greatly appreciated.
Have we ordered the next three?
No, we have not. This trial period for this one is still ongoing, and please direct to any board member or me any comments, concerns, and we will try to address them.
What does one unit cost?
Four of the units together are gonna run around $7,000. I liken that there's two main reasons for our shop, Jason, that this came up about. One is dust pollution. We're even sanding lots of epoxies and resins here now, which is really bad juju on your lungs. We encourage respirators here if you're doing anything, but we have a lot going on, and anything we can do to get the dust down and the noise levels down in here is good for our members. We are concerned about everyone's health, and that is a big component of why investing this kind of money in tools, safety, the noise, and the dust, not necessarily in that order, because we want everyone to be around for as long as possible.
How difficult and clean is it when you have to clean out all the dust that's been accumulated in the filter? I mean, is it self-contained, that comes out in a bag?
So it's all in a bag. Let's do this.
We didn't put the bag in here.
Oh, okay. In the separator? Yeah, a lot of people don't. A lot of people have dumped this. They do make a liner for the separator also. You know, the vacuum itself, I'm just gonna take this off real quick. So I mentioned about that 99.7 of filtration.
You want me to set that up here?
Every single, well, I can grab it. I'm gonna have to, let's do this. Every single one of our dust extractors comes with a HEPA filter and a HEPA bag.
It has a brake on it, gentlemen, so the machine won't move.
So this bag is not connected, and all the dust is now encapsulating in the filter. If I went and got my vacuum out of my car, this whole tub would be completely clean. So when the bag is hooked up, so they come with these I don't know if this is gonna be the best example, and maybe I'll go grab mine really quick
There's an
here.
extractor behind you,
You
now
go
it's a
grab
bag.
it. Yeah, we can use this one too.
Yeah.
Was that?
I guess Scott and I have our work cut out cleaning that
Yes,
up
so
today.
this is actually a great thing, because how the inside of this looks when we talk about our lungs and dust in the air and blowing out and everything like that, how that looks is like every other vacuum that we're all used to. That, if the bag's installed and hooked up, it will never ever look like this. It will all be contained in the bag. Once the bag is full, the great thing about our dust extractors, these tabs here actually do something. So they'll tell the bag that, hey, the bag's full. If you buy, this is also a wet dry vac. You can buy a filter for it for liquids. Then one of these tabs would tell it if the liquid gets to a certain level to shut it off so the liquid doesn't overflow or get into the motor. The great thing about all of our dust extractors is they run 100% until they are full and they shut off. If your vacuum shuts off, there's only two things that could go into it. The filter's clogged, which never should be unless the bag is falling off like that, or the bag's full. So unlike vacuums and dust extractors that lose capacity or lose suction, lose CFM as the bag fills up, ours will run 100% until that time. Also, the size of the vacuum, yeah, go ahead.
So are you
That's
saying
going
that every
wrong.
time we're wrong because our bag's not hooked up? We should have had the bag hooked
I
up.
would never say wrong. I would, especially when I'm outnumbered like this. I mean, no, yeah. There's tabs, and I'll show you when he brings mine in. There's tabs of the way that the bag goes in. Once it's hooked in, it'll hook in. It should hook in 100% of the time. People always ask me, can you reuse the bags? Well, yeah, but that kind of defeats the whole dust extraction. You know, a bag, you guys are doing a lot of sanding, so this is maybe a little bit of a different environment, but this right here is the CT26. It holds 6.9 gallons of dust. That's a lot, especially fine dust, that's a lot of dust. Bags come in a 5-pack, they're $37. I know y'all don't have control of the purchasing, but at the end of the day, from a health and safety standpoint, you know, a 5-pack of bags at, 7 gallons a piece, you're getting 35 gallons of dust extraction for, $37. So, a much better way to go.
Here, I'll take that one off here. Thanks, Jason.
Do that. So, this little cute guy is called the CT MIDI, and I'll show a couple of things here. Can I plug this in really quick?
Yeah.
Whoops, sorry. It's okay. All our vacuums, no matter what size they are, all those numbers correlate, except for this one that's called the MIDI, but like the CT26 that y'all have here, that's 26 liters, basically. We have a 36 liters, a 48 liters. It's all about capacity. It's not necessarily about the power or suction. Even our small one here, this is our little compact guy we call the MIDI, holds 3 gallons of dust. Even this has the exact same power as our CT48 as far as suction, all around 136 CFM. So in this one, I'll show you. Oh, great catch. We could have talked about the warranty when that hit the ground.
They will here, I'm sure.
So that's what you can see. That bag has quite a bit of dust in it. It's about a third full or whatnot. That's what the dust extractor is supposed to look like. So when I'm done with this bag, there's a little tab here on the side. You see these tabs and locks. All you do is pull the tab, seal the bag, throw it away. The bags all go in a certain way. They have a tab that locks in, and then a little pull tab, I don't know if you can see it, that will fit over this indent right here. That's what locks every single bag in, including the one you have. This one sits sideways, the other bag sits frontwards. I talked about suction on these. I talked about it being sealed. The reason that we can breathe while we're sanding. All of this around here, you can see this rubber gasket, completely sealed unit. So when I cycle this on, and that's, so it doesn't come off until the vacuum cycles off. That's encapsulating all that. So the filter, this one's on the side here. The filter is a HEPA filter, and the bag is a HEPA bag. So it's a double HEPA filtration system. That's what allows us to do work in hospitals, schools, things like that, where other people can't. Or an environment like this where there's a bunch of folks doing a whole bunch of projects at one time. We wouldn't have to turn many sanders on right here and have dust shoot out before we're out of here, you know.
How often does that smaller filter need to be replaced?
That'll last years, as long as that doesn't happen all the time. Because it's not going through the filter. So it's just catching any residual that's coming into the vacuum through the hose and through the bag. Those bags, they block down to 0.3 microns. So imagine sanding stuff like silica dust or gypsum dust for drywall, super fine stuff. It'll actually catch all of that to a point where it'll actually clog the bag up. Because that's how fine particle-wise it'll catch. Because it's really not the particles that we see when we're sanding. Like all the dust we see in the air, yeah, that's bad for us. It's all the particulates that we don't see. That's really the dangerous part to us because we don't see them and we breathe them for hours and hours and hours. Especially like you said, sanding epoxies or things like that where stains, solvent-based type stuff, where it's giving off VOCs and giving off different things that we can't even see. That's the benefit of the dust extraction. What else?
Any other questions on the sanders? Anyone? Any concern?
Do people in the shop need to make contributions to acquire this equipment, or is
No,
it
the funding in our funds, to my understanding, I'd have to ask the board member that question, but my understanding is we have the resources to do this.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need the membership behind it to do that. And so that's why from the last meeting when we set this up and the video came out, we were looking for all of your input and, the pros and cons of everything so we can make the most informed decision for the health, safety, and betterment of our woodworking.
Is the unit that we have that's so dirty, is that just a loaner then?
No, that we purchased that one and it's dirty because somehow the bag was not installed properly. And that is a prime example
Where do we keep the replacement bags?
of, the replacement bags are in the mechanics corner. And we have replacement bags for all these different models we have. We have extra HEPA filters, we have everything we need. It's a matter of training and working into our monthly maintenance day of looking at those.
Do we have sheets made up yet for maintenance day?
That is not made up yet, but it's coming.
Checks in the mail.
Okay, checks in the mail.
How about the sandpaper? I mean, you guys sell it in packs or?
Yeah, so we sell sandpaper either in boxes or we have them in what we call abrasive sets. For a group like this that's doing a ton of sanding, obviously the boxes would probably be better. The great thing about our paper, what makes our paper a little bit different, one, it's unique because of the hole pattern, obviously for the dust extraction. But two is the longevity of the paper. The I guess biggest mistakes in sanding, so to say, is what usually causes paper to break down? Heat, just like an engine, right? Heat's the worst the absolute worst thing for paper, because what happens is you get that heat on the surface of whatever you're sanding, your paper will gum up, it'll wear the paper down, it'll give you, you know, whether it's swirl marks, whether it will be a bad finish on whatever piece of wood that you're using. Our paper does not heat up. On average, it lasts about 5 times longer than sandpaper that you would buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you buy sandpaper at. You know, that's what makes ours unique. And again, that's why I always go back to it's a system. Can you use this sander alone without dust extraction? Absolutely. We even sell in our smaller fine finish sanders that even come with a bag. Bag does a really good job, but it's not the same as having it to a dust extractor. The other great thing about our paper is our hook and loop system. So these pads are replaceable. One thing you never want to do, and the reason that sander, when I cycled it on and I talked about that automatic brake system, that as soon as I shut that sander off, you saw that pad stop. A lot of times what people will do is they'll either take paper, they're in between grits, they'll shut a sander off and then they'll set it on a surface. And what that does is ruin that hook and loop system of the pad. Once that pad stops sticking, you know, obviously you've lost the ability and then you got to replace the pad. The great
And we
thing,
have extra pads already.
just more that. The good thing about our paper is, I always like to say, you know, I grew up in the Northwest. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. You line 2 holes up, and it doesn't matter what 2 holes on our paper, any 2 holes. You can pick them. You can play a game. You can, you know, mess with people. But you line 2 holes up, and every single hole lines up on the paper, so it makes it really, really easy to use.
We even made a jig for you.
That
And
is
there will be a
fantastic.
stick, and all you have to do is take the jig. You can put the papers in the reverse order of your grits and just go clunk, clunk. And it should be very simple.
That's my $1 million idea. I'll sell that to Festool. I like that.
I can make that cheaper than Festool ever make that.
Probably. You know, and you talk about the investment, and you know, I don't know how many personal tools aside from, you know, in here that y'all have, but you know, the one things that make our tools different, and my dad was a GC growing up. You guys should teach me things about fine finish woodworking. If I was within a 1/4 inch in my world, I was true and accurate, you know, and I'm getting better, so to say, but I'm definitely not the fine finish woodworker that some of my counterparts are. But I used to watch people do things and I was like, it's the person, not the tools. There is some truth to that, right? You have to definitely have some expertise. But the thing about Festool that makes us different than what we call the rainbow tools, the DeWalt's, the Milwaukee's, the Makitas, you know, the Bosch's, the things like that, is it goes back to the quality of the tool. You don't have to work a tool like you would, so we'll stick to sanders. You don't have to work our tools on a 5-inch random orbital sander like another sander. Between the balance, the weight, the vibration or lack of, the tool's doing the work. And I always like to say the great thing about Festool and why you invest the money in Festool, the first thing is it takes us as much as we can out of the equation. We're our worst enemy, you know, and so the tool does more work for us. Second is the quality and the warranty behind our tools. Festool stands behind all their tools. If I would have dropped that one on the ground, we would have replaced it for free, as long as it was within 3 years.
Don't drop the tool.
It's wear and tear. The reason and then 10 years parts. The reason I say that is it's a brand new tool for 3 years. That's how confident we are. We want people using them day in and day out, 8, 10 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. We're confident that that tool is going to be able to meet that expectation. So from a quality standpoint, that's really what you're paying for. So again, I know not the big decision maybe in the room as far as price and stuff like that, but from a confidence standpoint, it's a tool that's made to be used every day. They all come in these nice, shiny sustainers. They all come in their own homes, so to say. There's a whole system behind that. But they're a tool that's made to be used every single day, day in and day out. All right.
Any more questions
Pete
on the
Sanders?
Sanders? Can you please, go ahead, George.
Just from a practical point of view, as far as, once it's set up, filters are where they belong. All we have to do is use the tool. There's no maintenance as far as we're concerned.
No.
Other than using it.
Other than it depends how your OCD is. Like mine's pretty high. You know, I'm the guy that can't have a glass in the sink and go to bed at night. You know, I try to clean my tools every time after I use them. But other than that, the aesthetics part of it, from a mechanical maintenance, anything like that, it's on and off, ready to go all the time. There's nothing you would need to do.
But as far as the filter system, I mean, the filters are gonna fill up. We're gonna clean them up once a month.
Yep.
This filter has been in here for a year. That's what it looks like. Because again, the most vacuums, what happens is when the dust's sucking in through the hose, it's coming up through the filter and then it's going into the tub of whatever vacuum. Ours are a little bit different. It's coming into the vacuum, it's going into the bag that blocks 99% of particulates. Then
The
it'll go through
5% make it to that.
Yes.
How do you clean that?
Vacuum it out is usually the best way. You can take this out, and then it has these little ribs in here, and I just take the little detail attachment on a vacuum on one of ours, and then just vacuum it out and pop it back in. But this is what this looks like after a year. So your filter, you shouldn't have any filter maintenance, and honestly, you shouldn't have to mess with the bag unless the vacuum stops working. That's when it tells you that the bag is full, is when the vacuum doesn't come on.
And our sander system is gonna be set up with a cyclonic system like the dirty one over there. And that will even make those bags last. I haven't changed my bag. I have one of these vacuums at my garage here. And I haven't changed that bag in 4 years. And I do 90% of my own sanding there because it does a better job than I can do here until we got this.
So that clear part there on the top, that like initially takes stuff of it out and then the rest of it gets cut in the
Goes
bag?
right into the bag. Yeah, so usually the reason that you would have this is for large capacity. It's basically doubling your capacity and it keeps you from filling the bags up quickly. So if you're running track saws or routers like you talked about that are throwing bigger chunks of material, that's catching it in here. Not as much for dust. I mean, it'll contain dust and do that, but really its job is to collect the bigger particles so that they don't fill the bag up quicker. So it's catching the big ones in here where, again, this will come with a liner. 90% of the people have it set up just like this. It fills up, they dump it in a dumpster, things like that. It just makes your bags last a whole lot longer.
That fills will shut it off.
I'm sorry?
When the
The
cycle
cyclone.
fills, will it shut off or it won't shut off on its own?
No, the vacuum, it senses suction more than anything else. That's where the vacuum will shut off. So when this is full, it will shut off. The vacuum will shut off because when it senses that loss of CFM, and basically that's what's telling the bag's full. That's why if you have a really dirty filter, it'll almost fool the vacuum because that CFM will drop enough that it senses that it'll be like, hey, the bag's full. Well, the bag might not be full. It could just be that filter that's clogged because it might have been a mishap of a bag falling off. You know, it could be as simple as someone took the vacuum over a drop, the bag wasn't locked in there very well, so it kind of came out of that notch, no one noticed it, and it just kept using it. So yeah, it'll shut the vacuum off. And that's the coolest thing is when you cycle a tool on, I don't think that one's still plugged in, but when you cycle a tool on and then turn the vacuum off, the vacuum will stay on for about a second and a half, and it allows all the dust to collect out of that hose before the vacuum will shut off. I get asked all the time too, a lot of people in here, and I don't know an option for you, that can you run more than one tool? So you can see there's one plug here on the vacuum. The tool plugs directly into the vacuum. The answer to that is yes, you can. We do make an adapter, a Y adapter, where you can run 2 sanders off of one vacuum.
I was told by factory when I called them that you cannot run 2 sanders at the same time. It won't burn up.
Nope, you can't run 2 sanders off this plug. So what a lot of people will do is try to put a strip or a Y or something in there and run 2. You have to run one plugged into the wall and then the other tool plugged into the vacuum. Now that guy with the tool, so you have 2 hoses going off here. The guy with the tool, the vacuum will go on and off as he cycles the tool on and off, and you might have seen me do this. The other guy has a nifty little button right here. That's why all our vacuums are Bluetooth enabled. He can turn the vacuum on and off, so he can be plugged into the wall. But yes, you can run 2 sanders at one time as long as you don't have them both plugged in to the vacuum. If you have them both plugged into the vacuum, it'll trip that and kill it.
You got that, Dave? We bought one of the Bluetooth, and we are gonna have one of our vacuums here with that hose with the Bluetooth trigger on it and a Y, and that one is gonna be set up for just vacuuming off your pieces. So that is in the plan here at this juncture, that we'll have just a bare hose with a brush head on it. And you can, instead of going over and getting the vacuum or doing this with the broom, which puts sawdust everywhere, or blowing it off like we were, which was a disaster, we will have a Bluetooth hose at the sanding station that you just turn it and it'll turn the vacuum on and you can get rid of
These sanding
all this.
tables won't even be turned on. Is that
The debate of keeping the downdraft tables is still ongoing. And the latest I heard from board members is we keep one and get rid of the other one.
Why?
Because there's still people in the air sander camp here that do not want to get rid of the air sander.
Well, that provokes the next question, why?
Well, I'm saying it's a process that we're working through. That's all. It's not good or bad or indifferent. It's a process that we want every member to say their piece and the pros and cons. That gets us to the best place we can possibly get to, and that's our goal. Your health and safety from your hearing, your lungs, and the health of everyone. It isn't just my lungs, it's all of our lungs. And that discussion needs to be had, and I appreciate these two coming here today to express better than I can the importance of that for all of us. If we can get better work done in less time and safer and cleaner, that's a huge thing. And so that's our goal. Thanks, Jason. Could you, thank you very much for that. It would be awesome. The other most popular tool that we have of Festool in here is the domino joiner. And if you could just give a brief spiel on that.
Yeah, that one's tough to do brief, but I mean, it can do so much. That's that.
Yeah, and so that would be an awesome thing if you did.
Yep, real quick, domino. How many people have used this? All right, same question applies. What's your thought process on the domino? What's your likes, dislikes?
Strong tool. Sherwin Precision.
Yep.
Step ball right there.
So the great thing about the domino is we've seen biscuit joiners forever to join material. This isn't also a lining or joining material. It's doing it with strength. you know, we talk about our Kenyans, which we have all sorts. Do you just have the 500 here? The
Yes,
smaller
we
one?
don't have
Okay.
any.
So these Kenyans are designed to strengthen, to your point, the material, not just to align it. So a couple things with the domino, real quick, because this could be a 4-hour escapade on the domino because it can do so much. The base, everything is centered off the base. This is the base right here. From the edge of this point until the center of the bit is what we call 37 millimeter. We have these index points to make things very easy. So when you're doing material like that, or you're doing joints on miters, straight pieces, you can put it, you never have to measure. Again, we talk about precision and speed. You're putting that right up flush, and then you're plunging the domino right into it. You're coming here and doing the same thing. If you're building boxes and countertops, is there another piece of material I can
Can you grab a piece of material?
It's gonna require one-on-one training.
I will be going.
The domino? Yeah. Let's say you're making shelves or bookcases or things like that, and you want to do this quickly and accurately. You can plunge both ways. You can plunge vertically. Obviously, these aren't the same, but you can plunge vertically, flip it around, and index it again off that piece, plunge this way, and then when you're doing your shelves, they would just line up. I'd love to show you if we had more time. It's probably one of the best
What
ways.
I will propose to the board, and if with Jason's approval, is we can have a 2-hour session here on training with the domino joiner if there's an interest in that.
Oh, yeah.
Get a sign-up list, and if with Jason's approval, we'll buy him lunch or something, and, you know, bribe him a little. And
I'm all for
give him
bribery. I'm cheap too, so. Depth setting of the domino, there's these numbers right here, again, all in millimeter. So whatever your Kenyan is, so one of the most popular ones is a 5x30, 5 millimeters thick, 30 millimeters in length. So it would go in 15 millimeters into each portion of the material. Obviously, you see the index setting there. You would just change that to 15. Hopefully, I'm not going to mess anybody's project up here. If I am, I apologize. And then you have that depth set so that when you plunge on each side, it will be equal amounts. Why is that important? Again, you don't want any gap in between the domino that you put in and space in between the wood for strength. The one thing on this also, and again, this gets into, you know, doing miters and beveled edges and things like that. You can feel this when you push it. There's indexes in there so that it automatically, you know, you're at 15 degrees, you're at 45 degrees, you know, you're at 60 degrees. There'll be indexes in there. Super easy to change the cutters. One thing I tell people all the time, anybody know about the 4 rules of the domino?
No.
So this is all you need to know about the domino is 1, always mark your material. In other words, not mark your material where you're measuring it, but what side you're working with. In other words, what your top side, bottom side, things like that are. The second rule of the domino is make sure that it's always indexed. In other words, when you're using this on a flat surface, I skipped rule number 2, but when you're using it on a flat surface, you can see it might have the tendency to move around. If you have the plate down and you're doing that material, you want all your pressure on the front of it. This right here takes very little pressure. You want to make sure that it's always indexed.
Back to rule 2.
Back to rule 2 that I skipped. Always try to work above counter height and off the surface. Unless you're doing something kind of like I showed you where you're doing kind of that bookshelf, you want to work off the surface. The reason for that is, again, we can go into detail. When you bottom this out, this is actually a measurement tool. So when this is engaged, it will only go as far as it allows me to go down. You can adjust those too. That'll only allow me to go down that far. Now, if I tilted that out, it will actually allow me to bottom it completely out, and then I know that I can get a true depth because it's always the laws of thirds with the material. In other words, anytime you have material, you want a third of the material above, below, and then obviously, doesn't mean the domino has to go in the middle per se. It just means that for a strength purpose, you always want thirds with that. Third rule was the plunge. Make sure or to have pressure. Fourth rule is the plunge. Most people will hold this by the plummet cord. You don't have to grab the domino and reef it in to do it. If you hear that cutter chattering, making noise, doing anything, you're pressing too hard. You don't want to hear noise or chatter from that.
Let the bit do its work.
Let the bit do the work. Settings on the domino. You want to try to change the settings, even though it'll let me do it right here between tight and medium. You want to do it when the machine's on normally. It will not let you go to the loose setting because the machine's not off. So when you're changing the settings, which is different from our sanders, you want to have them off. You want to have it running. Question we get all the time is why the settings on the domino. Why do you have a tight setting? Why do you have a medium? Why do you have a super loosey-goosey setting? And basically that's just the width. It's 2 millimeter extra each time that you do the width. When you're aligning long pieces of boards, unless y'all are probably really good, I'm not. Unless you're really, really good and you do tight settings every 18 inches and you got to put those and glue those boards together. If it's not perfect, you're never ever going to get that together. So what we usually tell people is you do a tight on both sides, on the ends, and then a medium in the middle, and that gives you a little room to, when all the tenons are in, to go ahead and connect the boards together. So that's the different settings. Again, this is a very
we'll get into depth on that, and if you look at all our boxes here, they're labeled "Get an Instructor," and there's more than me. There's Bob Barks. There's a lot of people here that can get you running on that, and it goes back to our general rule in this wood shop: if you don't know, ask, and we'll get you the help you need to make the best project that you can dream of. And that's our underlying goal.
Sure.
Yeah, this is probably, did you do that? Did you? That's great.
A lot of Americans don't understand metric worth a damn. I spent 3 years in Germany. So.
It definitely makes, I never used metric my whole life, and then obviously coming to Festool you use it more, and the way people explain it to me is, they say, what's half of 11/30 seconds? And you're like, what's half of 30 millimeters? I mean, I guess that does make sense. So, domino is probably one of the most unique tools that Festool has ever made. There's a million sanders out there. Now there's 500,000 track saws. Everybody seems to make a track saw now. There's really not very much like the domino out there. It's a very unique tool. No one seemed to produce something like that. And it's so versatile. You can do so much with it. I just did a barn door and dominoed the entire barn door together and did not use one fastener. It was all put together by domino pin.
They even have breakdown dominoes for like IKEA type furniture where you can break it down and put it back together.
Yep.
So there's a lot, and I promise we will work diligently on setting up the class, so you guys can really learn how to use this great tool.
Jim, training,
Training.
that you have to be trained.
Yeah, you have to be trained to use that tool. And that's been a little lax here. I've sat down with people and showed them the basics of it. But again, it goes back factory. We have over 500 members. That's a tall order to train everyone up to the same speed. So that the challenge for the woodshop club is ask. I'll go back to that, and then we'll get you somebody with one of the hats like you have on, and we'll get everybody up to speed. That's all you gotta do.
Jason, what would be your availability with Brazos to maybe do a 10 to 15 person class every quarter or something?
I mean, quarterly, as long as I'm, it's scheduled a month out, where I have, normally a month out, I'm good.
Okay.
To where we
So
can look
tomorrow, no, I'm sorry.
but yeah, and what's unique about this tool is I probably know 10% of what it can do, and it can do things that you can't even think of it. I had a guy come up to me at a show, and he showed me his cord wrap that he used, that he dominoed slots in for his cord wrap to hold his cords. There's just a bunch of stuff that you can do with it. The greatest thing about this tool is you can't mess it up. If you mess up, you can't mess it up. You can't mess the tool up.
Don't challenge this crowd.
You can't mess the tool
Not
up.
going there.
You,
wrap it up, Jim.
Yeah,
yeah.
Time to go to work.
okay.
All right. You're getting the hook.
Okay, yeah, and any other questions briefly? Track saws for another day.
Yep. And it's what we can do too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mine is very old, but I'm